Okay, hello, namaste. Today I am here to continue the mean value theorem, generalized mean value theorems of higher order derivatives. And in last class, we learned about Taylor's theorem with Lagrange's form of remainder and its properties. And today I am going to give you the statement of same Taylor's theorem with Cauchy's remainder. And as I told you earlier in classes that I'm not going to give you the proof of this theorem, the statement only, and we can prove this theorem in similar way as we did in earlier case with that of Lagrange's form of remainder. And here we are doing this because we need both of the form of the remainder, that means Lagrange's form of remainder and Cauchy form of remainder, while checking the validity of expansion in Maclaurin series. So let's go through the statement only for now. And here statement is similar. If a function fx defined on closed interval a to a plus is defined such that fn minus 1x is continuous on closed interval a to a plus h, fn x is differentiable on open interval a to a plus h, then there exists a number theta in open interval 0 to 1 such that f of a plus h equal to f of a plus h f dash a plus h square by 2 factorial f double dash a plus dot 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 hn minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial fn minus 1 of a plus hn upon n minus 1 factorial times 1 minus theta whole power n minus 1 fn a plus theta h. And here if you see the statement, it's almost similar, but difference is that on the last term is different, as the remainder term has a different form, and this last term is known as the Cauchy's remainder. This last term is known as the Cauchy's remainders. Okay? And it has the form hn upon n minus 1 factorial 1 minus theta all power n minus 1 fn a plus theta, and it is also denoted by Rn. And this is the Taylor's theorem in finite form with Cauchy's form of remainder. Okay, now after doing this Taylor theorem, now we'll move to Maclaurin's theorem. And as I have told you that Maclaurin's theorem is particular case, a special case of Taylor's theorem. So essentially generalized mean value theorem of higher order means Taylor's theorem, and from Taylor's theorem we'll be generating Maclaurin's theorem. But how? Let's see. First we'll write Maclaurin series in finite form as we did in Taylor series. Maclaurin series, Maclaurin's series in finite form. Let's see. Okay, first we know that we have done from Taylor series. We have Taylor series in Taylor's series in finite form on the interval a to a plus h f of a plus h equal to f of a plus h f dash of a plus h square by 2 factorial f double dash of a plus h cube by 3 factorial f triple dash of a plus blah 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 plus h to the power n minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial fn minus 1 of a plus the remainder term. Okay, let's use Lagrange's remainder. Hn upon n factorial fn a plus theta h, where 0 is less than theta is less than 1. We know this already. And what we do here is, let's put a equal to 0 and h equal to x. If you put a equal to 0 and h equal to x, the interval will change to 0 to x. Okay, then let's put a equal to 0, h equal to x. We get, what will we get? F of x equal to f of 0 plus h f dash of 0 plus h square by, x f dash of 0, x square by 2 factorial f double dash of 0 plus x cube by 3 factorial f triple dash of 0 plus x to the power n minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial fn minus 1 of 0 plus, you get here x to the power n upon n factorial fn of theta x, provided 0 is less than theta is less than 1. Okay, we get an expansion here of fx about x equal to 0, and this is known as Maclaurin series of the function fx in finite form, and this is called the Maclaurin series. This is called the Maclaurin series of fx in finite form. We call this one. Okay, so we can restate Maclaurin's theorem in finite form like this. Okay, statement. Let's see how do you state. Let's see. Statement. Here you have to note that the interval of the function defined is 0 to x, closed interval. Okay, so if a function f of x defined on closed interval 0 to x is such that, number one, condition is n minus 1 third derivative is continuous on closed interval 0 to x, and its nth derivative is fn x is differentiable on open interval AB. Then AB means 0x here. Okay, then there exists a number, then there exists a number theta in 0, 1 such that I will write the same statement such that f of x equals f of 0 plus x f dash of 0 plus x square by 2 factorial f double dash of 0 plus xn minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial fn minus 1 of 0 plus Rn, which Rn is the remainder where Rn is the remainder after n terms. Rn is the remainder after n terms. N terms given by xn upon n factorial fn of theta x. Or this is called Lagrange's form of remainder. It might be in what's called like Cauchy form of remainder as well. This can be in Cauchy form of remainder as well. We are using a Lagrange form of remainder. Okay. And now this is the called Maclaurin series in finite form. Okay, in finite form. So now we need to go to now infinite form. Till now we are to finite form. But how to get a series in infinite form? Here. Okay, here we had got two restrictions, two hypotheses. Means fn minus 1 is continuous on closed interval AB and fn x is differential on open interval AB. Here we go only up to nth order derivative of the function fx. But what we do here is, if a function is differentiable at any order, that means, for example, suppose if you take f of x equal to ex, the derivative of every order for this function exists in all real line. Means derivative of every order is continuous for this function, isn't it? So if a function has continuous derivative of every order in the open interval 0 to x, then in that case, and next, when n tends to infinity and Rn tends to 0, we must consider two cases, isn't it? Here we are given only up to entire derivative until n minus 1 was continuous on closed interval AB. Then so we could go only up to n minus 1 order derivative here. We could not go more than that. But if you want to get infinite series, then what should you consider is that the function is, the derivative of function exists at every order. Means fx has derivative, continuous derivative of every order. Fx has continuous derivative of every order in open interval 0 to x. First one. And second one is, as we take higher order derivative, as we go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and you can see here, and this remainder term should vanish. Then we'll get obviously sum of infinitely many terms on the right side with Rn tends to 0, with Rn equal to 0. Means in that case we'll be getting an infinite series expansion of the function in the interval 0 to x. So we'll be using these two ideas to get an infinite series. Okay. Now let's see first of all Taylor series in infinite form. Taylor's series in infinite form. Okay, first of all, we have got by Taylor's theorem. By Taylor's theorem, we have got f of a plus x equal to f of a plus x dash of a plus x square by 2 factorial f double dash of a plus dot plus xn minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial fn minus 1 of a, and plus at last let's say Rn, the remainder after n terms. It might be either in Lagrange's form or in Cauchy's form, any form. Any here, don't be confused. I have used the expansion of f of a plus h by taking h equal to x here. Here we are going f a plus h, you can say h dash h square by 2 factor h n minus 1 will get no for f a plus h. So if you replace h by x, you will get this x function. Okay, and here you can see here the function f of x is defined on the interval, which interval? A to a plus x. There is no doubt. Okay. Okay. Then let's write this one. A here is one polynomial, as you can see, having n terms and of degree n minus 1, and you can write this as f of a plus x equal to, let's say, Sn plus Rn. Sn means the sum of two n terms of this series, isn't it? Okay. And then let us assume that function f of x possesses or has continuous derivative of every order in the interval a to a plus x. Let's assume, isn't it? So what happens after that? Let's see. Let's see the relation. Relation 1. We have assumed Sn for this one. Then if f has continuous derivatives of every order in open interval a to a plus x, a to a plus x, then plus x, and this is the first condition. And next one, if Rn tends to 0 as n tends to infinity. We are assuming two conditions here. Okay, first one, we are assuming that f has continuous derivative of every order in the open interval a plus x, and next one, we are assuming that as we take higher order derivatives, remainder tends to 0, means Rn tends to 0 as n tends to infinity. Then from 1, what will you get? Limit of Rn will be 0, then you will get f of a plus x equal to limit n tends to infinity Sn, means the series on the right side. This Sn is the series, no? Having n terms. Then the series on the right side has the sum fx, means it converges to the sum f of a plus x, isn't it? And that is, what is it gives now? Means this gives, therefore you will get here f of a plus x equal to, now limit n tends to infinity Sn, means here we had got only up to n minus 1 order derivative, means now we will be moving to infinite order of derivatives, means you will have f of a plus x, f dash of a plus x square by 2 factorial, f double dash of a plus dot plus xn minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial, fn minus 1 of a plus dot to infinity. Then to infinity will move here. So this is the Taylor series in infinite form, which is the Taylor's series in infinite form. But you can see here, for this Taylor's series in infinite form, we have used the interval a to a plus x, a to a plus x. So if you put here a equal to 0, here in same Taylor's infinite series, you get another expression, that is f of x, f of 0, f dash in that form. So that will be now Maclaurin series in infinite form. That is, to get Maclaurin series in infinite form, we need a function defined on closed interval 0 to x and limit Rn tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, and the function fx must have continuous derivative of all order, every order in the open interval 0 to x. Now let's say Maclaurin series in infinite form. Maclaurin's series in infinite form. Okay, just before we reach Taylor series in infinite form, we have used the interval a to a plus x. Now we'll be using a interval 0 to x. So if f possesses continuous derivative of every order in a to a plus x, and if Rn tends to 0, as n tends to infinity, then we'll have, from here you can find it f of, here we'll do 0 to x, okay, 0 to x. If f is continuous derivative of every order in 0 to x, and if Rn tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, then we'll have, here we'll put a equal to 0, and then we'll remain only x only, then f of 0 plus x f dash of 0 plus x square by 2 factorial f double dash 0 plus xn minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial fn minus 1 of 0 plus we'll get, and this is the Maclaurin series in infinite form, which is called Maclaurin series in infinite form. And here you can see this will give a power series in x square means increasing power, infinite power series it will be in terms of ascending power of x. Now let's see when the infinite expansion of Taylor series and Maclaurin series will fail, isn't it? That means let's talk about the failure of Taylor and Maclaurin series expansion. That's for infinite expansion. Okay, just before, as I told you, in both cases, either in Taylor's series or in Maclaurin series, isn't it? In both cases, the function must possess continuous derivative of every order in the given open interval, and next remainder must tend to 0 as n tends to infinity. Means as you go on increasing the order of derivative, then remainder must be decreasing. And if these two conditions are satisfied, then only the expansion of Taylor series expansion or Maclaurin series expansion of a function will be valid. Otherwise, we cannot expand in the given interval. So, failure of Taylor series and Maclaurin series expansions. Let's see. That's for infinite series I'm talking about, okay? Okay. The expansion of a function, of any function, function by Taylor series or Maclaurin series will be invalid. Will be invalid if number one, fx or any one of its derivative doesn't exist. Fx or any one of its derivative doesn't exist. Because the first condition was it must be continuously differentiable on the given interval. That means if one of the derivative doesn't exist, then we cannot expand that function by using Maclaurin or Taylor series expansion. And second one is, if the series expansion is not convergent, means if limit n tends to infinity Rn is not equal to 0. So if these two conditions holds, then we cannot use Taylor series or Maclaurin series to expand the given functions. Now this is all about Taylor series and Maclaurin series. So now we'll go through some examples. First, let's see first example. A simple example, expansion of Ex, the exponential x. Okay, here we have been given function. Let f of x equal to exponential x, and it is defined on whole real line. We know that, isn't it? This function exists everywhere on the real line. So for all x belong to R, isn't it? For every x belong to R, this function exists. And then let's find a derivative. F dash of x equal to exponential x equal to f double dash of x equal to f triple dash of x dot dot equal to fn of x equal to dot dot, means it's all derivatives are equal, that is Ex. So what can you say? First condition, here what we are going to do is, whether the expansion of this function exponential x about origin exists or not. One thing we have learned already in Taylor series expansion, that in Taylor series expansion I have written f a plus x, one of the expansion. If you remember, f of a plus x, f dash of a plus x square by 2 factorial f double dash of a plus xn minus 1 upon n minus 1 factorial fn minus 1 of a plus remainder Rn, let's say, isn't it? And this is called the expansion of fx in the neighborhood of x equal to a. This expands, this is called the expansion of the function fx in the neighborhood of x equal to a, isn't it? We are using x equal to a, isn't it? So similarly, if you use 0, if you use a equal to 0 here, then you will get, isn't it? You will get Maclaurin series expansion about x equal to 0. About x equal to 0. So here whatever expansion of function we use, isn't it? The expansion of function we use are done about the origin, means about x equal to 0. So we'll be using Maclaurin series expansion to find the infinite series expansion of the given function fx. So here first, let's see, f dash x, f double dash means the derivative of each order is continuous, because exponential x is a continuous function, isn't it? Everywhere in the whole real line, not in any interval, 0 to x, everywhere, isn't it? Everywhere in the whole real line. So we can say f as continuous derivatives of every order in the neighborhood of x equal to 0. First condition. Now second condition, we have to check the remainder, whether remainder tends to 0 or not. And here first of all we will be using Lagrange's remainder, Lagrange's form of remainder. Then we will try whether it tends to 0 or not as n tends to infinity. Now consider Lagrange's form of remainder Rn equal to, we have got xn upon n factorial fn of theta x for the Maclaurin series, xn upon n factorial fn of theta x, where 0 is less than theta is less than 1. And now fn of theta x means fn x is exponential x here, isn't it? Here fn x means exponential x, therefore fn of theta x will be exponential theta x, isn't it? So we'll be using same, that is xn upon n factorial fn of theta x, exponential theta x, exponential theta x. Now we got the two factors here. One is xn upon n factorial and there is exponential theta x. Two factors. So now as we are expanding about x equal to 0, that's why we'll see what happens if value of x is positive, means greater than 0, and what happens if x is negative. So let's see for positive value. If x is greater than 0, then if x is positive, then theta x will be less than x, because x is positive, theta is a proper fraction, so theta x will be smaller than x, because theta is a number between 0 and 1. X is positive, means theta x will be a positive number smaller than x. So if you take exponential on both sides, you will get exponential theta x is less than exponential x. So what it says that exponential theta x is bounded by exponential x for all x, means the value of exponential theta x can never be greater than exponential x when x is greater than 0, means exponential theta x is bounded for x is positive. Now let's see for negative what happens. See for negative value as well. Okay, for negative value, if x is less than 0, if x is negative, then exponential theta x will be always less than 1, because x is negative, theta is positive, so this will be look like 1 upon exponential theta x, isn't it? So this will be 1 upon something, but 1 will be always smaller, means this will give the proper fraction, so it will be always less than 1. Well, because this is 2.1718 to the power theta x, means probably certainly the denominator will be greater than the numerator, so you will get the number which will be less than 1. So when x is positive, exponential theta x bounded by exponential x. When x is negative, exponential theta x is bounded by 1. It cannot exceed 1. So in both cases, that means exponential theta x is a finite number, finite value. It can never be infinite. I mean to say, exponential theta x is bounded by exponential x. Value of exponential means whatever value of x you take, it will be smaller than exponential x. Exponential theta x will be smaller than exponential x. And for negative values of x, exponential theta x will be always less than 1. Means it is always finite and bounded. It can never be infinite. Isn't it? This is second factor. Now let's go to first factor, xn upon n factorial. Isn't it? So, and also we know that limit n tends to infinity, xn upon n factorial is 0. It is because as you go on increasing value of n for some value of x, isn't it? So you choose one of the value of x. Suppose I will be choosing, suppose x equal to 1. Let's take 1, 1 by 2 factorial, 1 by 3 factorial means 1 by 6, 1 by 4 factorial means 1 by 24, 1 by 5 factorial means 1 by 120, 1 by 6 factorial means 1 by 720, and so on. And if you see, the denominator grows faster than the numerator. Yeah, denominator grows very, very fast in high speed. Then it grows very faster than the numerator. Means as you take higher value of x, you can see the difference between 1 and 1 by 2, 1 by 2 and 1 by 6, 1 by 6 and 1 by 24. Let's see difference between 1 by 20 and 1 by 720. Means the number is decreasing very fast. Isn't it? Means tending to 0. So limit n tends to infinity, xn upon n factorial equals 0. So what do you get? Therefore we got limit n tends to infinity, Rn equals to 0 here. Because in limiting sense, xn upon n factorial 0. This is bounded, so 0 times bounded will be 0. Means by using Lagrange's form of remainder, we prove that remainder tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, and f has continuous derivative of every order in the neighborhood of 0. That's why we can write expansion of the function fx by using Maclaurin series. So how do you write? Let's see. The condition, therefore, the condition for Maclaurin series is valid. So now we can use Maclaurin's theorem. And using Maclaurin's theorem, f of x equal to f of 0 plus x f dash of 0 plus x square by 2 factorial f double dash of 0 plus x cube by 3 factorial f triple dash of 0 plus blah 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 to infinity. Now we'll put value. What is the value of f of 0? F of 0 means e to the power 0 means 1 plus x. Now all f dash of 0, f double dash of 0, all of these are 1. We have that because f dash of 0, f dash of x is also exponential x, f double dash of x is also exponential x. Means if you put x equal to 0, all derivatives also will be equal to 1. Means here 1 plus x square by 2 factorial plus x cube by 3 factorial plus the dot, and here fx means what? Ex. So we got the expansion of the function exponential x. And here be careful that the expansion of function means the expansion of function about the origin. About origin. So we'll be using Maclaurin infinite form of the series to write the expansion of the function. Now similarly, let's see next example. Expansion of sin x. Expansion of the function sin x. Now let f of x equals to sin x. You know that this sin x is also defined on the whole real line. You know, it is continuous everywhere on the real line, and we know its nth order derivative. Then fn of x will be sin n pi by 2 plus x. This is by nth order derivative of sin x plus b. We have learned in higher order derivatives in previous chapters. Okay, then therefore fn of theta x will be opposite. Fn of theta x will be sine n pi by 2 plus theta x, and where 0 is less than theta is less than 1. We are preparing for remainder, isn't it? And you know that fx, the derivative of fx will be sin x, and derivative of sin x will be cos x. Means as you go on increasing, taking higher derivative of fx, you will get either sin x, cos x, sin x, cos x, sin x, cos x, isn't it? It will go on alternating, sin x, then cos x, then sin x, then cos x. So sin x and cos x are continuous everywhere. Continuous everywhere. So f of x has continuous derivative of every order in the neighborhood of 0, isn't it? And this since sin x, or you can say f of x, has continuous derivative of every order in the neighborhood of 0. One thing we have got. And next means first condition we got, isn't it? Now let's go for the second condition, that's a remainder. Now let's use Lagrange's form of remainder. Now Rn equal to xn upon n factorial fn of theta x 0 less than theta less than 1, and this means xn upon n factorial fn of theta x means sin n pi by 2 plus theta x. And now we need to find whether sin n pi by 2 plus theta x tends to 0, or is it bounded, or what kind of function is it. First we need to test for that. And xn upon n factorial tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, already we told that, isn't it? And here it's very clear that the function sine is always bounded. Its value lies between -1 and 1, you know that. Function cos is also same, then it's bounded between -1 and +1. So here what can you write is, since modulus of sine n pi by 2 plus theta x is less or equal to 1, and limit n tends to 0, x n upon n factorial equals 0. I told you this in the previous problem. How? Because denominator grows very fast, very quickly than that of numerator. So it tends to 0 before the numerator becomes infinity, the whole term becomes 0, isn't it? So what is here? The value of this sine n pi by 2 plus theta x is less or equal to 1. Its maximum value will be 1 only, means always finite. Lies between -1 and +1, means finite value. And xn upon n factorial tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, means as n tends to infinity, the right hand side becomes 0. That is, therefore, limit n tends to infinity, Rn equals to 0. Means second condition is also fulfilled. Means fx has continuous derivative of every order, and second one, the remainder tends to 0 as n tends to infinity. Both of them have been fulfilled. So the expansion of sin x for infinite series, in terms of infinite series, is being valid here, isn't it? Therefore, what can you write there? Therefore, Maclaurin series expansion is valid. Then expansion of function sin x is valid here, and using Maclaurin's theorem, f of x equal to f of 0 plus x, f dash of 0 plus x square by 2 factorial f double dash of 0 plus x cube by 3 factorial f triple dash of 0 plus x4 by 4 factorial f fourth of 0 plus x5 by 5 factorial f fifth of 0 plus let's see. Means now what you got value of f0? Let's find. We have got f of 0. F of 0 means 0, sine 0. No? Then we have got fn of x means what you have got? Sine n pi by 2 plus x we have got. So f dash means n equal to 1. F dash means n equal to 1 means sine pi by 2 plus theta means cos theta. So cos 0 will be 1 means f dash of 0 will be 1. And next f double dash of 0 means you take n equal to 2 here. F double dash of 0 means if you take n equal to 2 you will get minus sine x. Sine pi plus x. It means 0. F triple dash of 0. If we take 3 here, then 3 pi by 2 means this will be cos, minus cos x. Means this will be minus 1. And f fourth of 0 means you will take here f fourth of 0 means if you take f4 you will get cos 2 pi plus sin 2 pi plus x means sin x. Sin x means sin 0, 0. Then f fifth of 0 means you have to take out 5. 5 pi by 2 means cos x. Cos x means cos 0 it will be. Cos 0 means 1 and so on. And so on. Now if you substitute these values, all these in Maclaurin's theorem, you will get the expansion of fx. Fx means sin x. Fx means sin x. Therefore, sin x equal to first term becomes 0. F0 0. So second term x into 1 x. Third term becomes 0. F dot dash is 0. Fourth term minus 1 means minus x cube by 3 plus f fourth of 0 is 0. So term of x4 doesn't come here. And then f fifth of 0 means 1 means x5 sorry here 3 factorial. Here 5 factorial minus dot dot which is the required expansion of sin x. By using similar method we can find expansion of cos x as well. And now let's go through the last example. That's of log of 1 plus x. Now expand. Expand log 1 plus x means here we have to check the validity of expansion. But sometimes what happens, you will be given assuming the validity of expansion, write the expansion of the following functions. Means in that case you should not check the remainder tends to 0 or continuity of its derivative. We should not be checking the two conditions for validity. In that case, if you have been given assuming the validity of expansion, write the expansion of, if you have been given like that. Okay. But here we have been in just expand log 1 plus x means we need, by using Maclaurin series means we will be first checking whether the expansion is valid or not, isn't it? So here let f of x equals log of 1 plus x, and you know that here log of 1 plus x is defined in the interval minus 1 to plus 1, you know that, isn't it? Or this should be greater than, here this should be always positive. X plus 1 must be greater than 0, means x must be greater than minus 1, isn't it? So here then let's find f dash of x means 1 upon 1 plus x, you know how to do derivative. Then f double dash of x will come probably negative minus 1 upon 1 plus x whole square. F triple dash x will probably come 1 into 2 upon 1 plus x cube whole cube. F fourth of x will come minus 1 into 2 into 3 upon 1 plus x whole power 4. And f fifth of x will come 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 upon 1 plus x whole power 5, and so on. So we'll get fn of x will be minus 1 to the power n minus 1 factorial upon 1 plus x whole power n. Because if you see here 5, then here is 4 factorial. Here 4, here 3 factorial. Here 3, here 2 factorial. And sign or minus negative 1 to the power n minus 1 will be using here. Okay, we found f and x also. So from here you can find f dash 0, f double dash 0. For all values you can find from f and x, isn't it? Okay. And here, as we see that if x equal to minus 1, this will be invalid, isn't it? So for all x which is greater than minus 1, why? Because we have to see here f of x is defined when x is greater than minus 1, means x plus 1 is greater than 0, otherwise it will not be defined, isn't it? And now, so what we do here is we are going to expand about x equal to 0. Then first we'll go through 0 to 1, and then we'll see to minus 1 to 0, isn't it? That's one. Now let's see case 1. But before doing case 1, let's write the remainder term. Let's consider the remainder term. Consider the remainder term Rn equal to xn upon n factorial fn of theta x 0 is less than theta is less than 1, means Rn will be xn upon n factorial fn of theta x, means where there is x will be writing theta x, means negative 1 to the power n minus 1 into n minus 1 factorial upon 1 plus theta x whole power n. In place of x, we will be writing theta x. Okay. And if you simplify this one, what will you get? Here is n minus 1 factorial, here is n, means here will be only n in the denominator. So, negative 1 to the power n minus 1 upon n. Then here x and 1 plus theta x have same power, so x upon 1 plus theta x whole power n will write. Isn't it? Okay, then let's see case 1. In case 1, when 0 is less than x, let's say between 0 and 1. 0 is less or equal to x is less or equal to 1. Isn't it? Okay, then when 0 is less or equal to x is less or equal to 1, you multiply this, isn't it? Both side by theta or okay. Then when 0 is less or equal to x is less or equal to 1, then what can I do? 0 is less than x upon 1 plus theta x is less than 1. Isn't it? 0 is less than x upon 1 plus theta x is less than 1. What does it mean? When x is positive and lies between 0 and 1, from 0 to 1. Isn't it? In that case, value of x upon 1 plus theta x will be always less than 1. Because x is between 0 and 1, maximum its value will be 1. Isn't it? And here 1 plus theta x. And theta is some number between 0 and 1. So 1 plus theta times x will be 1 point something. 1 point something will be in the denominator and maximum 1 will be in the numerator, means this forms a proper fraction, proper positive fraction, isn't it? So its value lies between 0 and 1. That is, the value of x upon 1 plus theta x is bounded, isn't it? It never becomes infinite. So, and it is proper also. Its value lies between 0 and 1. So whatever power you take, no, it goes on decreasing. Isn't it? For example, if you take 0.5, if you do e square, you will get 0.25. If you do power 4, isn't it? You will get 0.0625. Means it goes on decreasing as you goes on increases power, isn't it? That's why x upon 1 plus theta x whole power n, here it doesn't turn to be infinite, it tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, isn't it? The first fact. That's why here minus 1 to the power n minus 1 upon n is there, and as n tends to infinity, this term also tends to 0. So for this first case, the remainder tends to 0. That's why, what can you write in next step for Rn? Let's see. Then therefore, you can write Rn is less than minus 1 to the power n minus 1 upon n. Why? Because the value of x upon 1 plus theta x to the power n lies between 0 and 1, isn't it? So when this first factor is multiplied by a proper fraction, then only it becomes equals with the remainder. Means this value is larger, isn't it? The first factor is larger, second factor is a proper fraction. That's why this proper fraction, while multiplying, reduces this larger value to be equal to the term Rn, isn't it? So here we must have minus 1 to the power n minus 1 upon n is greater than Rn, isn't it? These two become equal because this term on the right hand side is multiplied by a proper fraction. Then only they become equal. Okay. Then if we take it modulus, modulus Rn is less than 1 by n, because now negative sign is omitted, isn't it? And 1 by n tends to infinity, 0 as n tends to infinity, isn't it? Means here, isn't it, this term would be giving negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive alternately, no? But you know that positive terms are always greater than negative terms. So we need to take care of positive terms, isn't it? Positive terms will tend to 0 as n tends to infinity or not, because negative terms are always smaller than the positive terms, isn't it? So we are searching here whether the positive terms will be tending to 0 as n tends to infinity or not, but we found that they do, isn't it? So what do we got? Therefore, limit n tends to infinity, Rn equals 0 is valid for 0 is lesser or equal to x is lesser or equal to 1 only, isn't it? From 0 to 1 it is valid. Now what happens on the left side of 0? Let's see. What happens on the left side of 0? Means we have chosen 0 already here. Now we need to take less than 0 and greater than minus 1. Now case 2, when minus 1 is less than x is less than 0, then x upon 1 plus theta x need not be less than unity. Less than unity means 1. Means theta is always between 0 and 1. We don't know what is the value of theta, isn't it? So we know only x, isn't it? So we might be getting some values of theta, for some value of theta and for some value of x, isn't it? This expression, isn't it, x upon 1 plus theta x sometimes might be greater than 1 also, isn't it? But we are, so we cannot guarantee that this x upon 1 plus theta x will be always less than 1. Here we cannot guarantee. Means there are some x, isn't it, and a theta between 0 and 1 for which x upon 1 plus theta x might be greater than unity. So if x upon 1 plus theta x becomes greater than unity, here you can see if it becomes greater than unity, means greater than 1, then its value goes on increasing to infinity as n tends to infinity, isn't it? If the value of this expression is greater than 1, then as it takes its higher power, its value goes on increasing to infinity. That's it will be unbounded, isn't it? So here are some values of x plus x upon 1 plus theta which are greater than unity. So here in this case remainder doesn't tends to 0. Therefore limit n tends to infinity, Rn is not equal to 0 here. Means minus 1 to 0, isn't it? For minus 1 to 0 we could say nothing here because we could not say that it will be always less than unity. There can be greater than 1 also. When this value becomes greater than 1, Rn tends to infinity, means doesn't tends to 0. Means by using Lagrange's form of remainder in this case, minus 1 is less than x and 0, we could not be confirmed. And so we must be using the remainder form. Means let's consider Cauchy's remainder form. Now we consider Cauchy's remainder forms. Cauchy's remainder is Rn equal to, we have a little bit different form, xn upon n minus 1 factorial 1 minus theta whole power n minus 1 fn of theta x we have it. Now we'll put their value xn upon n minus 1 factorial 1 minus theta whole power n minus 1 fn of theta x means we have found fn x means minus 1 to the power n minus 1 and here was n minus 1 factorial divided by 1 plus x was there, but here will be 1 plus theta x whole power n. We have got this one, isn't it? So n minus 1 factorial cancelled. Then what you get here? You get here negative 1 to the power n minus 1. And next we'll be writing 1 minus theta whole power n minus 1 and we'll break its power, means we can write 1 minus theta upon 1 plus theta x whole power n minus 1. Then 1 terms remaining, 1 upon 1 plus theta x and another what's left? Xn. Yes. Xn. Means if you see 1 plus theta x whole power n minus 1 and power 1 is here. Okay. We are just rearranging the terms. And here, if you see 1 upon 1 plus theta x, isn't it? What kind of function we have to see this one also. And next, 1 minus theta upon 1 plus theta x also we need to observe, isn't it? So we are doing this all for x between minus 1 and 0, isn't it? So for minus 1 is less than x is less than 0, if you just multiply both sides by theta on this left inequality, implies minus theta is less than theta x, because theta is positive between 0 and 1. So add 1 on both sides. 1 minus theta equal to is less than 1 plus theta x. Divide 1 minus theta upon 1 plus theta x is less than 1. You got this one? Isn't it? Means 1 minus theta upon 1 plus theta x is bounded by 1. Means its value cannot exceed, isn't it, than 1. So, this is bounded, you can say. 1 minus theta upon 1 plus theta x is bounded above by 1, isn't it? And under 1 upon 1 plus theta x also, let's see. The value of x is in between 0 and minus 1, isn't it? 0 and minus 1. So, what happens here? 1 upon 1 plus theta x. If we take here, this is also bounded. Is bounded for minus 1 is less than x is less than 0. Then this also bounded. That means it doesn't turn to be infinite in this interval, I mean to say. Isn't it? If we take value theta is some value between 0 and 1. For any value of theta, if you choose x in between minus 1 and 0, this will never turn to be infinite. It's always finite, means it's always bounded. Isn't it? So, now let's see. Now what is now we have got another x to the power n, and value of x, you can see, lies between minus 1 and 0. Means it is proper negative but proper fraction, isn't it? So if you go on increasing its power, isn't it? So its numerical value goes on decreasing, means absolute value goes on decreasing. For example, here minus 1, between minus 1 and 0, what can be the value? Minus 1 by 2. Let's say, then, or you can take any values between 0 and minus 1 and you can test. Isn't it? Suppose if you choose one of the value, suppose if I take minus 1 by 5, let's say. Suppose if I choose a number that is minus 1 by 5 means 0.2, isn't it? Minus 0.2. Then if you go on increasing its power, square you do 0.04, cube you do 0.008, negativity will come, isn't it? And then power 4 you do 0.0016, positive, isn't it? And you go on doing like this, isn't it? So you will get some term positive, some term negative, positive, negative alternately. And what you have to see is that positive terms are always greater than negative numbers, isn't it? So we need to see for the positive terms, sequence series of the positive terms, whether that will go on decreasing to 0 or not. Isn't it? But here it will go obviously, because x lies between minus 1 and 0, isn't it? So if you take the absolute terms here, or if you take only positive terms on here, you will find that these terms will be gradually tending to 0 as you take higher and higher values of n. So limit n tends to infinity, x n also tends to 0 in this interval, isn't it? So what do you get in conclusion? Let's say, therefore, also for minus 1 is less than x is less than 0. Think what I told just before, I am writing same thing. Limit n tends to infinity, x n equals 0. And as we told that 1 minus theta upon 1 plus theta x is bounded, isn't it? By 1, it is less than 1. So limit n tends to infinity, 1 minus theta upon 1 plus theta x whole power n minus 1 also will tend to 0, isn't it? Hence giving limit n tends to infinity, Rn equals to 0. Yeah, this is the constant, this is the sign only, isn't it? So 1 upon 1 plus theta is bounded, its value is finite, and other two terms tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, means whole remainder tends to 0 as n tends to infinity. Means by using Cauchy's remainder, what we decided that, isn't it? The Maclaurin series expansion is now valid in the interval minus 1 is less than x is less than 0 as well. For greater than 0, we did already by the Lagrange's, isn't it? For less than 0, isn't it? we did just now, isn't it? Hence Maclaurin series expansion. Maclaurin's series expansion of log of 1 plus x is valid in minus 1 is less than x is less than or equal to 1, isn't it? So now we can write the expansion of log of 1 plus x by using Maclaurin's theorem, isn't it? Then using Maclaurin's theorem, f of x equal to f of 0 plus x f dash of 0 plus x square by 2 factorial f double dash of 0 plus x cube by 3 factorial f triple dash of 0 plus that. Then what will we get is f of x means log of 1 plus x, log of 1 plus x. F of 0 means we have got fx equal to log 1 plus x. So f of 0 will become 0 plus x, f dash of 0 means you will get to 1 plus x square by 2 factorial. F double dash of 0 how to find? Fn of x you have got minus 1 to the power n minus 1 factorial upon 1 plus x whole power n we have got. So f double dash of 0 means if you put here 2, 2 minus 1 means negative, it will come negative, and then 2 minus 1 factorial. Here 0 means here 1 will come in denominator, means here 2 minus 1 means you will get negative, isn't it? Negative 1 only you will get here. Okay. Then after plus x cube by 3 f triple dash of 0. Triple dash means you will put here 3. 3 minus 1 2 means plus it will be 3 minus 1 means 2 factorial, means here will be 2 factorial, and similarly plus x4 by 4 factorial. If you put here 4 minus 1 3 means it will come negative, and then 4 minus 1 means 3 factorial upon 1 and plus so on, means what will I get? That is therefore log of 1 plus x equal to x minus x square by 2 plus x cube by 3 only because 2 cancel, minus x4 by 3 factorial cancel means 4 plus 2 that, which is the required expansion of log of 1 plus x for minus 1 is less than x is less than 1, isn't it? In this one we did. Okay, thank you. This was we did in this class today, and here we learned how to expand function by checking the validity of expansion, isn't it? If you have been asked to write expansion by using or by assuming the validity of expansion, in that case we do not test the validity of the expansion. Okay, thank you.